can, but not that it was going to come out today.
And Manchin is not ruling out a presidential run. That is the latest news. Weather, a first traffic report of the afternoon coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon. It is 3:07. I'm Pamela Furr, in for the ailing Brian Wilson, who apparently was text messaging people last night while high.
Oh, was he now?
Well, I say high. I mean, coming off the anesthesia.
Whoa. That's a way to start the show.
I was not aware of this.
That's what I heard. That's a rumor. I'm teasing. And he texted me later and said, pro tip, don't text when you're coming off of anesthesia. So there you go. That's a pro tip for all. Don't. And I'm having major surgery, December the 13th, by the way.
Oh, really?
Having my left knee replaced.
That's right. Yeah,
Completely replaced. I'm a little nervous, little frightened, a little scared.
Which knee?
The left one.
What are you doing in there?
Oh,
she asked me to stay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Murphy is also here. I did
Hi.
ask him to stay because we're going to talk a little country music here in a second. But welcome to the show. We've got Chris Weber in there producing, and we've got Mac. Oh, there he is. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's Mac Morey.
Hey.
I'm not participating.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You're a smart guy. No, I was actually just looking at the text, and he admitted
That he was high?
that the anesthesia had yet to wear off during The texting.
The texting. All right. Well, as long as, you have something to blackmail him with, it's all good. That's what I say. Hold on to it till you need it. All right, so we've got a lot of fun and we've got a lot of news to talk about. We've got some heavy things to talk about today between now and 7 o'clock that we will get into. But I really wanted to talk a little country music. This has been CMA week in Nashville, and that's really a big deal for people who make their living making music, making country music. So this week is a big freaking deal. It's not the same as CMA Fest or Fanfare, as I like to call it. That's different. That's where people from all over the country come and just hang out and they get to meet their favorite country artist or what have you. This is like the industry-wide thing where it's ASCAP, BMI parties,
It's their
awards.
Oscars. It's country music Oscars, right?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, you've got the Academy of Country Music also, but I think this one's a longer and bigger deal. What are you laughing at?
Matt, can you move to your left just a little bit? A little bit more.
Everybody,
I don't know what happened to that camera. But,
well, I had to move it because I was sitting over there, and I guess I'm shorter than everybody else.
Well, they got turned way to the this way.
Is this
Way that
okay
way?
now?
Yes, you're
Am
fine.
I all right
Is
now?
that much better?
Because
All right.
all the people watching
Sorry.
on television, God forbid they don't see my ugly face. The big thing is yours. but-
My ugly face?
Yeah,
Thanks.
no,
All
not your
right.
ugly face. Your
Well,
pretty face.
anyway, so last night, who in this room and over there, who watched the CMAs last night? Because I was watching the presidential debate. I'm sure you were entertained much more watching the Country Music Awards.
I didn't intend to watch it, but when I got home, I was informed that we're going to watch the awards. I'm recording it, so we're going to watch the award show. And I said, "Oh, okay."
All
I guess
right.
So yes, I did watch it.
Gotcha. And,
I did too.
And Matt, you watched it?
I kind of fell into it. E had it on. It started. It caught my interest when it started. And I thought, well, I haven't done that. I couldn't remember the last time I watched any music award show. And so I said, well,
Same,
let's give it a go and see if they entertain me. And for the most part, I was
You were entertained.
entertained. There was at some point, I think I posted a meme of the judge and my cousin Vinny looking at his watch. I'm like, is this over yet? I mean, it got a little. I mean, did you
Little
feel that
long
way? It was
in
a
the
little
tooth?
long.
It was a lot of performance. I will say that. I was amazed that there were more performances than there were awards given away.
Which that tells me they were trying to fill the TV time, I guess.
Yeah.
They were contracted for a certain amount. There was a time, I said this yesterday, but there was a time that I lived for this stuff. And I've actually been on I had to say that. Yes, I had to do the plug. I've actually been on a couple of CMA award shows. But these days, I don't know. It just doesn't seem as country like it used to be. Would you say that from last night's performances?
Having not watched one of these things and really I've not followed country music in the last 20 years, right? So I can't really speak to where country music was 5 or 10 years ago because that would be unfair to country music. But it has changed a lot.
It's
It's changed a lot.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I'm not a country music fan per se. I listen to country music when my wife is listening to
When you
country
have
music.
to.
I don't typically listen to it, but yeah, country is not what country was when I was a kid.
Yeah, and
so.
everything goes through its phases and everything goes through, there's a time when country music was real country and then it started to cross over when Dolly would start crossing over and Kenny Rogers would cross over and that sort of thing. And people got all upset about that. And then it came back around to your Garths and your Randy Travises of the world and George Strait. And then it started to go bro country and then, crossing over again. So it goes through its phases. What I don't understand, I've yet to understand this, why this industry thinks that they have to have people from other genres of music perform on their award shows. Unless it's truly an epic moment. And I mentioned this yesterday. You had Chris Stapleton and Justin Timberlake a few years ago doing Tennessee Whiskey that just blew everybody's mind. I mean, it was fantastic. But that was a moment. It seems like to me that they're trying to force moments by making this person perform with that person and this one with that one. And it just seems too artificial to me.
Well, I'll just put a fine point on it. I've not followed the ascension of his career. and I know he's from a local guy. I don't get why Jelly Roll is such a big thing. I just
Are you
don't.
a big Jelly Roll guy over there, Chris? or-
I'm not. Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I'm not. I don't see what the appeal is.
I'm not hating
I
on
guess
him, right?
he did have a music career before, like a rap. Was it rap
He
music?
was a rapper, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I
don't
like so I like the song "I'm Just a Long-Haired Son of a Sinner" or something like that. I like that song, but I'm more of a song person than an actual artist. So I'm not going to go gaga over an artist. I'm going to go gaga over a song. But he's like the King Daddy right now.
Well,
Everybody loves him.
And I just put it in the context. I don't want to be the guy. Like, I remind myself, as I was sitting there last night and I'm watching Jelly Roll and some of these other, I would say alternative forms of country, I'm reminded of the Waylon song, Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way?
Yeah.
And, like, I don't want to be that guy. I was like, well, you have to do it the way that they did it 35 years ago. I'm not that guy. But this is something different. It's like everyone is kind of bowing down before Jelly Roll like he's the next big thing. I don't begrudge him what he is, but
Or
like,
his successes.
or his success, but it's like he's not Garth Brooks.
Right.
And it seems like some in the industry are treating him like the next Garth or whatever. And I just, it's not even that I hate on it. I just don't get it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Now, with all of that being said, I do have a reputation, do I not, of being a nosy girl? I actually have a rumor that I want to talk about. In fact, I have a theme song here. So, and I think this is just awful. So
You have a nosy theme song?
I do. Didn't you not know? Yeah, I've got a nosy girl theme song. Everybody knows I'm nosy. Look, that's how I've made my living for a long time, being nosy and digging into stories. Well, apparently there was a tribute last night to Joe Diffie. Now, you talk about country. Joe Diffie was country. He made it cool. He was a 90s guy. I love to hear him sing. And if you recall, well, you weren't up here yet. In March of 2020, March 17th of 2020, that's when Nashville closed. We're closed. Everybody go home. That was the day our lives changed.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Diffie died, 3 weeks later of COVID?
Yeah, it was shortly after.
Shortly thereafter, 2 weeks later. He was one of the first people, famous people, I would even say, that in our community, if you will, who died of cancer. Or, I'm sorry, died of COVID. It was awful. I mean, and we were all stunned, shocked. It was terrible. And he left a young wife and he left a young daughter. And he had some other kids through other marriages and what have you. They did a Joe Diffie tribute last night, which is great. They didn't tell his widow
What?
that they were going to do a tribute to Joe Diffie last night. Can you imagine sitting at home and going, oh, well,
That's weird.
isn't that awkward? I just think that's awkward. Now, I don't know whose job it was to tell her. I think one of the sons was there, and I don't
Yes,
know
he
what the
was,
family dynamic is, but they weren't divorced, so it's a widow. I would think you would at least tell her. But here's the other thing. I'm not sure this was a great tribute. I want you to listen. This is Morgan Wallen, Post Malone, and Hardy doing a tribute to Joe Diffie. Can you hear it in there? Okay.
What a great song. Not this version, but yeah, great song.
Well, listen, this is Morgan. All right. I'm going to have to stop this for a minute. Now, I like Morgan Wallen, but what is he doing,
Does
man?
he normally sound like that?
No.
No, that's the thing. He was trying to impersonate, I guess, Joe Diffie instead of just singing like Morgan Wallen.
That's
Because
just
he's a decent
awful.
singer.
Yeah, I mean, I like Morgan Wallen. Let's keep listening here. Here's Hardy.
Tower.
I feel like I'm at karaoke night.
Yeah, exactly.
As this
Wait,
was
listen,
happening,
wait.
are they flat? They
Oh,
sound
yeah.
flat. And I said that to Erica last night. I said, I think these guys are flat.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, right there.
Lean.
And John. There.
I mean, that's just awful. I'm sorry. Now, Post Malone's about to come up on the stage.
Who?
Exactly.
Post.
Oh, wait, no, here's a.
Oh, shut up, Mac.
No, this is Hardy. I'm sorry. This.
You know how Post got his name?
On a note.
Well, Post is his last name, but he put his name through a random rapper generator. True
Are
story.
you being
Seriously.
serious?
I love it.
Wow.
That's serious. And then Post Malone.
I won't.
On a hot summer night. They're not.
All right, that's just, I got to stop. I mean, that's just hurting my heart. Joe Diffie was such a better singer. Now, I've never heard Joe Diffie live, but I think he was better than this. This is just awful. It just seems like they just want to party, so let's just sing John Deere Green. And
It was like a bunch of drunk guys just singing a Joe Diffie song.
Karaoke. Yeah. Karaoke.
Yeah, in fact, there's a part in here where it's supposed to be 3-part harmony, but there's some guy, one of them, I don't know if it's Hardy or Morgan or Post, they don't know how to do 3-part harmony, so they're singing somebody else's part also. So you got 2 on one note and 1 on one note instead of 1, 2, 3. It's bad. It's not great. I was not impressed with this performance. Mrs. Diffie, you didn't miss anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My confusion was this, and I looked this up last night.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been a CMA Awards prior to this since he died?
Yes.
Why are they doing the tribute now?
Good question.
Well, it's because Hardy is releasing an album. It's like, I think he called it like a mixtape or something like that, and this one is Joe Diffie songs, I think.
Oh.
That's what they said last night.
I
Yeah.
see.
So
So, this
maybe
is
it's
about
gonna be
selling.
promoting him.
It was
Yeah.
really to sell records.
Yeah.
Well, that might explain why they didn't
call her.
Call Ms. Diffie.
Yeah, because we looked this up. John Party actually did a tribute to Joe Diffie back in 2020.
2020, yeah.
Yeah, when it was a little bit more fresh and hurtful. But I don't know, Hardy. If that's what you sound like on this record,
By the way, I've heard the name Hardy before, but I had no idea what the guy looked like. He looks like he should work in a video rental store. He's just odd
Kind of
looking.
nerdy.
we are being so judgmental today, aren't we?
He doesn't look like a singer to me.
Jelly Roll, dumb. Post Malone, stupid. This Hardy
right.
guy, don't know him.
Okay, now one more, and then we'll stop this because we're at a break here. I guess 3:20. Unless I can tease this, and we can come back and talk about it. All right, let's do that. There was one point in the show because I've seen it. There was an artist that was on stage that we're not sure this particular artist was okay.
I know exactly who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
okay. So we'll talk about that when we come back, and then we'll move on from country music. Just like country music has moved on from us. It's 3:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
My name is Jessica Robertson, and I was like him, addicted to more. I remember things really spiraled out of control for me and him both. And we had hit rock bottom. I couldn't even function enough to keep a job. I was so isolated. He was here 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks' time, the difference that this program had made, that God had made in his life, you know, and I just remember I wanted that. I wanted that too. I was able to heal and reset. I had a great counselor, great staff members. You know, the love of God is all in this place. And that's what's helped me. And seeing people walk through those doors at first just broken, just like I was. And then a few months later, get to see that light come back on in them. You know, I know that's God working in them.
A UAW strike update as President Biden traveled to Illinois today to meet with auto workers. Wildlife death in Tennessee, plus the federal trial involving Paul Pelosi and his attacker has now begun. We'll have those stories 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 3:26. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson, who will be back tomorrow. I believe he will be off all anesthesia. And
Let's
we'll be
hope
able.
so.
I don't know. I think it would be
let's
kind of
hope not.
fun to have a high Brian Wilson on the air. I think that'd be fun. Lots of fun.
It would be interesting, that's for sure.
From bucolic Watertown.
Bubonic Watertown.
So we have Matt Murphy still in the studio with us because we're talking a little country music. Chris Webber in there. Both of these guys watched the show. I watched the debate, so I didn't get to see it. But I've been watching clips throughout the afternoon and performances. And a lot of people are very concerned about a particular performance last night from Jelly Roll and Winona. I'm going to play a little bit of it here. Wait, maybe I should fast forward it because this is like a minute of this,
takes a bit,
right?
yeah.
All right, hold on. All right.
What's your language, Jelly Roll?
All right, hold on. Good grief. How long does this take? All right, here we go. All right, here's Winona. All right, so the reason why people are worried, I'll play this kind of behind us, she walks out like almost like she can't walk.
Very unsteady on her feet.
And then she immediately grabs on to Jelly Roll's shoulder and his jacket and is holding on for dear life.
And does not let go.
No.
And
And
entire
doesn't
time.
move.
Doesn't move. Yeah, she's not looking at the audience at all. She's looking off to the side. So now you've got cameras trying to move to different angles to get her while she's singing. But she's holding on for dear. She's not dancing. She's not shake. You know what I mean? With the groove of the music, she's not looking at.
No.
She's not even really truly looking at Jelly Roll. She's just kind of staring through him. So I mean, there was widespread concern about Winona last night.
I don't know. Did you see it live?
Yeah.
At the time, I mentioned to Erica that I said, I don't know this dude, but he looks worried about her. Like Jelly
Yes.
Roll was looking at her like
Yep.
he was concerned for her
'cause
while they were singing.
At one point, he had his arm like on her arm almost to hold her
Yep.
steady.
Yeah, and you could tell because once she grabbed a hold of him, it became aware to him that, okay, something's not good here. And so he stood still as well right next to her.
Right.
Because I think he thought she's going to go down if she loses.
Live on TV, and live in front of all these people. Well, I mean, I don't know. She does struggle with vertigo, and maybe she was having a vertigo problem right at that moment. I mean, I don't know. She did post a video later that said, "Thank you, my fans, for being so concerned, but I'm fine." You and I watched that together. Even saying that, she didn't seem fine to me.
Yeah. And saying her excuse was that she was extremely nervous.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're Winona. You've been on stages your whole life.
Yeah,
I don't
since she was
buy
like
that.
18
She was
years
one of the
old.
country divas for decades and
Years,
decades.
yeah.
I don't buy it.
So, I don't buy it either, but I mean, I'm still concerned. So Winona, if you're out there, I think she's on the road. So anybody that knows we will say a prayer for you. We hope you're okay.
My first thought was that, she lost her mother.
Right.
And who knows what sort of grief process
She's still going
is involved
through.
in
Yeah.
that, and that she still goes through. And I mean, I admit that my thought was,
Maybe she's medicated.
maybe she's
Yeah.
medicated.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
she needed, she perhaps needed something. I'm not, faulting
Not faulting her, no.
I'm just saying perhaps she needed something to get herself on the stage because of the loss of her mother and the emotional impact that all of that had.
Right, and then it just didn't pan out very well
Right.
when she got it.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
and not faulting her. I'll
And
say that
oddly
again,
enough,
too.
she sounded fine. I mean,
Sounded great.
She sounded like Winona. So
Yeah.
And she's looking good.
Yep.
she has lost a bunch of weight. She's looking really good. But we'll say prayers for Winona, and we'll say prayers for country music, man.
I'm sorry, I didn't laugh. I think
it's
country
true.
music needs some prayer. And then Chris Stapleton comes up, and I'm like, yes,
And
all
he
is right with the
blows
world.
everybody away.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All is right with the world
All
when
is
that man
right.
sings.
Yeah. All right. It is 3:31. Thank you, Matt Murphy, for sticking around.
Of course.
We'll see you at the Bourbon Bash on Saturday.
Yes.
With your
I'll be there
football game.
with my
watching.
telephone.
All right. News is next with Mac Morey at 3:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.331, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 65 degrees, a cloudy day right now on Music Row. Expecting some showers later on this afternoon and almost definite into the evening. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. President Biden traveled to Illinois today to meet with auto workers at a shuttered plant that will reopen after strike negotiations with automaker Stellantis. He spoke about his support for unions, his economic agenda, and his predecessor and possible repeat election rival, Donald Trump. Karen Travers has the latest.
President Biden took something of a victory lap before a fired-up crowd of UAW union members in Illinois Thursday, praising them for fighting for better wages, benefits, and retirement security during the recent strike with the big three automakers.
You kept the picket line going for 46 days. You kept your negotiations working around the clock, negotiators. And in the end, the deal you reached set a new standard.
The president was speaking at a Stellantis plant that closed earlier this year but will reopen because of the negotiations between the company and the UAW.
And Stellantis will also add a new battery plant nearby. Wildlife deaths in Tennessee. News 2 reports that a mama bear along with two cubs were killed in a vehicle collision. There were two cubs that were living and they had to get moved out of the area. Those two cubs that were killed weighed about 50 pounds each. The TWRA did not have any further information about the bears or the driver involved in the crash. And the federal trial is now underway in San Francisco for the man who's accused of breaking into the home of Nancy Pelosi last year and attacking her husband with a hammer. Alex Stone.
In opening statements, prosecutors held up the hammer allegedly used in the attack on Paul Pelosi and described how the attack was carried out. They told jurors David DePape researched Pelosi's background and address a week before the attack. He took public transit to Pelosi's home, and jurors were shown video of DePape allegedly trying to break in. They said he roamed around the home, tied up Paul Pelosi in the bathroom, but that Pelosi was able to call 911 and attacked Pelosi when police arrived. Jurors were shown a photo of Paul Pelosi's head in a pool of blood.
And that is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 3:39. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson. Glad to have you on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Got a lot of reaction to our country music conversations, which that actually surprises me on the Super Text line. So thank you for all of your messages. I'm trying to read all of them now. Meanwhile, I was going to get into last night's debate, but this story just popped up for me. And I'm a little confused, and this is a little frightening. I can see both sides of this issue. So I'm going to let me just real time it with you. I'm going to tell you about it and respond because some of this I have yet to get through yet. First of all, I am not a parent. I think everybody knows that. If you don't, there you go. I'm not a parent. I've never been a parent. And the way things are going, never going to be a parent. Hadn't had a date in a while. So anyway, I'm teasing, sort of. But you have children, Chris.
Child, yes.
A child. So I guess when newborns arrive, blood is taken from them pretty immediately. They take blood to just test for different diseases and child things. Did you know that?
I did not. I don't recall that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Nearly every U.S.-born baby has blood drawn to check their risk of more than 60 rare diseases within hours of coming into the world. Sounds reasonable to me. What many parents may not know is that these DNA samples can be stored in a government lab indefinitely. Why?
Yeah, I don't like that.
But it allows law enforcement access to blood for investigations into a child's relative. Well, I mean, that's a lot of holding on to a lot of blood from a lot of people. I mean, the average person is never going to, there's going to be really no reason to test most people's blood, I would think, right? It's interesting to me. A 1996 cold case, apparently, was solved last year after New Jersey police collected a baby's DNA without a warrant to investigate the child's father, grabbing the attention of some parents who are now suing state health officials over its storage practices. So now this story is coming to light, which, by the way, is fascinating to me. There's a map of each state and how long newborn DNA is stored in each state. New Jersey can store samples for up to 23 years. California, Massachusetts, and Maine indefinitely. Guess where Tennessee is on that? Indefinitely. It's deeply concerning that they are preying on the helplessness of a new parent, according to one of the people who's suing. In your most vulnerable moment, someone is taking something from your child and you have no idea. Well, I have a hard time believing that. I mean, no offense to Chris. You're probably, I don't know if you were in the room with your wife when she had the child, and you don't have to tell me any of the details. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're probably focusing on that moment with your wife and calming her and all of that. But I mean, you do know that they do the little test on the little feet. They do, make sure they're moving. So they do all those tests. So I'm sure they're not trying to keep from you that they're also taking a little bit of blood to test for these diseases. But you're not really focused on any of that. Can I hear my child cry? Does my child have all 10 fingers, 10 toes? All those things. I've never experienced it, but I would think your focus is elsewhere. So I do agree that it's a vulnerable time, but I'm not sure they're trying to be covert about it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But keeping that blood indefinitely, that's where I have a weird time with this. And why is the government, why is it being stored in government labs once the hospital has determined you don't have any of these 60 rare diseases? Why isn't the hospital just disposing of it? That doesn't make any sense to me. There's got to be, I don't know, something else about this. Let's see. Nancy Kearney, a spokesman for the New Jersey Department of Health, which includes the Division of Family Health Services, told the Daily Mail, this is where I got the story, the New Jersey Department of Health does not comment on pending litigation. So they're not going to comment because they're being sued. All right. Genetic newborn testing started in the 1960s with the hopes of detecting diseases and conditions that could kill a child or cause severe problems. Nurses fill 6 spots on a special filter card when administering the screening that is then sent to a lab for testing. But leftover samples are stored for the specific allowed time. Now, that's the part I have a problem with. According to the state of Minnesota's website, samples are kept so that tests can be repeated, used to identify a missing or deceased child, and for medical research. California began storing samples indefinitely in state-run biobanks since 2000. The state previously only filled 5 spots on the card, but it increased in the 2010s, which, by the way, seems so foreign to say 2010s to me.
It's a long time ago.
That was 13 years ago, 2010 was. In December 2020, it was revealed that investigators in California wanted access to newborn screening samples for criminal investigative purposes and made at least one arrest using the genetic material. See, this is now where I'm torn. Well, it did do some good, I guess, if they were able to arrest somebody that did something not so great. Maybe they should ask you first, can we keep your kid's blood?
That would be nice.
And now I think of all the times I've donated blood and, I've had blood tests run when you have to do your annual physical. Did they keep the blood or did they destroy the blood? Is some of the blood given over to the government? I kind of want to know now. I don't know why they would, but now you just don't know anymore, do you? Or am I being paranoid? I think I'm being a little paranoid. Other states that store newborn DNA for years have regulations to limit what can be done with the samples, and some, like Alabama and Arizona, let parents refuse blood retention. That's what I think you should do. If your parent, if they ask you and you say no, then destroy it. You have to destroy it. But then I would need some sort of guarantee that you destroyed it, because we are talking about the government here, aren't we?
Good point.
Mm-hmm. South Carolina and South Dakota destroyed the blood spots after a year or as soon as testing has been completed. That's in some states. Institute for Justice attorney Brian Morris, representing these people that are suing, told the Daily Mail that New Jersey is actually among the worst. The biggest problem is that it is a black hole with no regulations governing this retention. Nothing is preventing New Jersey and the health department from doing anything with the samples. Now, what would they do with the samples? I mean, just for me, it's my blood or my kid's blood, and you have no right to it. Once you've done these testings, destroy it. That's the way I would be. But what could they do with this? This is just not a parent issue. It's about digital privacy as well. The government can reach in and take whatever it wants, and we're trying to protect individuals from that. I agree with that. Texas, Minnesota, and Michigan have also faced lawsuits over their blood storage practices, primarily because parents did not provide consent. Perfect. In 2009 lawsuit, in this particular lawsuit in Texas, which was holding DNA indefinitely, it resulted in the state's $5.3 million blood samples. And now all blood samples obtained after 2012 must be destroyed after 2 years. 2 years, and then you got to get rid of it. Texas was sending blood samples to the Pentagon to create a national database that would become international. I have a problem with that. My question is, what kind of database? I'm just going to use Chris as the example. Chris Weber, newborn, taking blood samples. Then does it the name Chris Weber and I don't know, social security number, follow that blood into this database? I have a problem with that. Of course, you don't have a social security number at birth now, do you? It takes a little
you
bit
have to
to
wait.
get it.
Yeah.
All right, so your name and your date of birth and the county in which you were born. Does it follow? While a warrant is typically needed to obtain genetic material, the New Jersey Office of the Public Defender Law Enforcement did not have permission to collect the child's blood from the database. This particular attorney, Morris, he told the Daily Mail that the New Jersey Police Department had used the state's newborn disease screening program 5 times previously. The samples were obtained, blah, 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 blah. They were able to find I guess, someone who had been involved in a crime. I guess they were looking for a father who had raped a 10-year-old girl in 1996 and a 5-year-old girl in 2003. So they were able to obtain from the card of a now 11-year-old to arrest his father. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the good news. They got this bad guy off the streets, but most people aren't murderers and most people aren't rapists and most people aren't aggravated assaulters. And I mean, I can go on and on down the list. This is just weird to me. For what purpose would it need to go into a database? That's just more government control, government intrusion that they have no business being involved in. Genetic testing when you're born, that's fine. Testing for diseases, that's fine. After that, I think it should be destroyed. But most importantly, you got to talk to the parents. You can't just keep it indefinitely. And Tennessee is apparently one of those states. We need to talk to some lawmakers about that and get that changed in Tennessee. What do you say? 3:51, I'm Pamela Furr, and I'm way late. I'm in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones. Actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin won't run for re-election, but he may be running for something else. We'll talk about it. A crime update in Tennessee, plus some more crime in Tennessee as well. We got to tell you all about it. 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Maury. I want to know more about that Joe Manchin thing. In fact, we may talk about that and other political things. We are going to talk about it at 4:05 after the news. Mary, I know you're holding on the line. We've run out of time, so I'm not going to be able to take your call. I apologize for that. But if you want to super text us, you can, 737 9986. Is that it? 615-737-9986. You can do that. Anybody can do that if you'd like. It is available to you. All right, stick around. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 65 degrees, cloudy, rain in the forecast later this evening into tomorrow. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin announces he will not seek re-election next year. It opens up an opportunity for Republicans to take back the Senate. The 75-year-old Manchin held his seat in the red state since 2010. Manchin, in his announcement, talked of unifying the nation by other means.
I've made one of the toughest decisions of my life and decided that I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate. But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together.
Manchin is not ruling out a presidential run. Crime update in Tennessee. The man accused of shooting and now killing 18-year-old Belmont student Jillian Ludwig may face new charges now that Ludwig has died. Shaquille Leonard was shooting at a black sedan in the Edge Hill area, and a stray bullet pierced Ludwig while she was walking in a nearby park. Leonard was ruled incompetent for trial back in April of this year for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge. Leonard remains in jail on a $280,000 bond, and Ludwig's family says that losing their daughter will forever change the fabric of their lives. And in the nation's capital, just 8 days till another possible government shutdown with no spending deal in sight. Andy Field tells us the president's already rejecting a new Senate Republican plan to help Ukraine and Israel, plus secure the southern border.
Senate Republicans want more money to keep building former President Trump's border wall and tougher asylum rules before they say yes to more Ukraine and Israeli military aid. White House reaction?
We don't see anything in that proposal about creating an earned path to citizenship for Dreamers and others.
White House spokesperson Olivia Dalton saying the president will discuss immigration after they pass the emergency funding and keep the government open.
And right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that a shooting on Tuesday at a Morristown apartment complex put Morristown Hamblin West High School into lockdown, along with some nearby childcare agencies. The shooting injured a 17-year-old boy. Another 17-year-old was arrested in the incident. Both of the teens were students in the school system, but the shooting was not on school grounds. The victim is in stable condition while that suspect remains in custody. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 4:07. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive. It is Thursday, so we've got one more day, and then it's the weekend. Oh, and it's the Bourbon Bash. I have to plug that, don't I?
What's that?
It is a wonderful event. We've been doing it since 2015. Actually, I may have started it in 2014. Our very first one was very, very small. We had maybe 50 people there. under a tent in somebody's backyard, and it was actually great. I mean, I can say this with all humility. It's God and the wonderful people of Middle Tennessee, but I've yet to lose money on an event. So I'm knocking on wood, and that includes that very, very first one. So I'm very thankful. And it's not about me at all. It's about the causes that we raise money for. So we're going to talk a little bit about that a little later on. I'm going to have Lee Kennedy, who is a part of the Freedom and Whiskey Foundation, on to talk about that and the members of the military that we serve by hosting this Bourbon Bash. I heard this phrase a long time ago. I can't remember who told me this phrase, but it stuck with me for a long, long time. There's no greater honor than to serve those who serve. And I never thought about that. Serve those who serve. That feels like it's my calling and it's my mission in life to do that. And so I happily take anything that I have, any platform that I have, if I can help a member of the military or a member of law enforcement, I will do so, period, end of discussion. I made that vow to God a long time ago, and I am trying very hard to be faithful with that promise. All right, moving on, though. And by the way, if you want to buy tickets, bourbonbashtix.com, TIX.com. All right, and it's this Saturday. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now in politics. And one of those things happens to be the news that Joe Manchin is not seeking re-election as West Virginia's senior Democratic senator. And at first I thought, oh, yeah, he wants to retire. No. There's lots of speculation that he may run against Joe Biden for president of the United States. Now, at first I thought, very interesting. But my question would be, he's 76 years old. Do we want another old guy like that? And look, I'm getting old. When I see you young whippersnappers over there in the other rooms, I just remember my youth fondly. Making it sound like I'm a grandma, aren't I? Not that old. But I can tell you, having a 70, and look, Donald Trump is up in age too. If he doesn't win the election in 2024, I don't think he should try again. He's getting on up there. At any rate, Joe Manchin is 76 years old. I don't know what he's going to do. He made the announcement that he would be traveling the country to see if there was support for a, quote, movement to mobilize the middle. Well, that tells you right there he's looking to run for president. At one point, didn't he say there was going to be like a no labels party at one point? I personally don't believe running as a third party, fourth party, or what have you is going to get you a win. Not these days. The other two parties are too big, too grand, which, is probably not the best thing in the world, but that's just reality right now. But I believe that if Joe Manchin runs as a candidate on a different ticket, in a different party, that is only going to help Joe Biden, not hurt Joe Biden, in my opinion. Because if you're a Democrat, are you going to vote for Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? Or are you going to stick with the one who's in power, who's in the White House? Joe Manchin, I think, will move those who are in the middle, who lean to the right, but don't like Donald Trump. And if that's it, right now, if it's Donald Trump as the candidate, you either have to stay out of the presidential election altogether, or you have to hold your nose and vote for Donald Trump. There were a lot of people in 2016 who held their nose and voted for Donald Trump, who have said it very publicly and didn't regret the vote. But they're also the same people who are going, well, maybe now I have a choice. Those people may vote for Joe Manchin. I'm telling you, that could happen. It's happening now when you talk about RFK. I mentioned this briefly yesterday at the end of the program, and I'm going to try to find the link here as I'm talking to you right now. But RFK, when you look at the polling, is actually making a bit of a difference when it comes to the race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden in those swing states that lost the election for Donald Trump. Whether you think it was stolen or not, regardless, he lost in those states. When you put Trump versus Biden in Georgia, according to an Emerson poll, you've got Trump up by 8 points. Pennsylvania, Trump by 4 points. Michigan, Biden by 2 points. Wisconsin, Biden and Trump are tied. Nevada, Biden and Trump are tied. No, I'm sorry. I apologize. Trump by 3. I apologize. Arizona, Trump by 2. But you put RFK in that mix? Let me find that, because that's the one that is a bit disconcerting in those swing states. Pennsylvania, it's a tie. Biden 36%, Trump 36%, with Kennedy at 21%. In Wisconsin, Biden by 2 when you put RFK in the mix. In Nevada, it was much higher. Trump still wins by 6 points, but it was 8 points, was it not, a few minutes ago? Arizona, it's a tie, Biden and Trump, with Kennedy at 24%. You have to look at what a third party and one who's popular. Joe Manchin is well known. Joe Manchin is popular among moderates. RFK, well known. RFK Jr., let me be more specific. RFK is getting a lot of press in the, how should I say, like the new media, podcasts, in the Twitter sphere, that world that Republicans, for whatever reason, can't seem to get a hold of. I mean, that really is the truth. And that's nothing new, and we can get into that in a minute. But when you look at all those numbers, and I don't know if you're like me, I start to zone out when I start looking at numbers. But when you're talking about swing states, when you're talking about the 2024 general election, that third-party candidate is only helping Biden and hurting Trump. You put Joe Manchin in there, if he's going to run on a different ticket. Now, if he's going to run against Biden on the Democrat ticket, ooh, now that will be interesting. Could he do it? Could he pull it off? I don't know. He is 76 years old. That also tells me that the Republicans and the Democrats really don't have anybody waiting in the wings young who's on fire that people are absolutely drooling over, like they did with Barack Obama. That speech that changed the world that he gave as a young senator from Illinois set everybody on fire. Whether you were a Republican or a Democrat, it didn't matter. The speech was amazing. Period. He knew how to give a good speech. And now you have youth and vibrance coming to the White House. Republicans don't have that waiting in the wings. I mean, Vivek, am I saying, I always want to say Vivek, but it's Vivek.
Yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy. He's got youth on his side. He has some splaining to do on some things he's taken a stand on in the past that is completely opposite of what he says today. Now, He also is growing up. And opinions do change as you continue to grow and you have children and you learn more about the world. And I get that. But he does have some splaining to do. After last night's performance, though, at this debate, I'm telling you, I think he needs to seek a different kind of election. And I'll tell you what I think about that here in just a second. Because I think Republicans need to maybe tweak their strategy when it comes to the future. Let me explain after this commercial break. It is 4:18. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. You can also super text us at that same number. Is that all I say? Yeah, we'll be back on WTN.
My name is Jessica Robertson, and I was like him, addicted to more. I remember things really spiraled out of control for me and him both. And we had hit rock bottom. I couldn't even function enough to keep a job. I was so isolated. He was here 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks' time, the difference that this program had made, that God had made in his life, you know, and I just remember I wanted that. I wanted that too. I was able to heal and reset. I had a great counselor, great staff members. You know, the love of God is all in this place. And that's what's helped me. And seeing people walk through those doors at first just broken, just like I was. And then a few months later, get to see that light come back on in them. You know, I know that's God working in them.
A government shutdown looming yet again, child crimes in Memphis, and the latest from Wall Street. I'm Mac Morey on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Morey. It is 4:23. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson Thursday afternoon. Glad to have you with us. It's about to turn dark.
It's getting close. Yeah.
I don't like this. It's too early to get dark. Oh, well. All right, I know I teased something, and I have to be honest with you, I can't remember what I said I was going to talk about. Vivek Ramaswamy. That's what I was going to talk about, isn't it?
Yes.
That
Nice.
I can't chalk it to anything else but Pamela getting old, man. I'm pulling a Biden on you. I don't know what I was talking about. Yes, Vivek Ramaswamy. So I think he did okay last night. There are a lot of people that are going, "Oh man, he was awesome. He was awesome." Was he? I mean, he had some zingers. I think he told the truth when it comes to the Republican Party as a whole. I mean, the party is getting older and older, and I don't know that the youth are coming up behind us as the ones getting older and older in the numbers like we would like it to see. And you've got someone running the RNC that I don't think does a very good job. But I haven't seen anybody running the party itself very well for a very long time, quite frankly. People may not remember this, but in 2016, you realize the Republican Party didn't back Donald Trump even after he won the nomination. They didn't give any money. They didn't do any ads for him. They would not support him. They didn't want him as president of the United States. In fact, it was Reince Priebus. And then Reince Priebus ended up working for Donald Trump later. I don't think it was for very long, but he ended up working for him later when he became president. The party itself did not get behind him. That was all Donald Trump. All Donald Trump and people who donated to his campaign. But the party itself did not help him. So who was in the White House before that? Oh, that was Barack Obama. The party couldn't find a candidate to run against Barack Obama that could win. John McCain and Mitt Romney were your choices for those 8 years. John McCain, I mean, God rest his soul, but by the time that he was running for president, he kind of lost his spark, if you will. And we learned later that he had a brain tumor, and that's what took him from us. And then Mitt Romney, milk toast. Mitt Romney, you're going to vote. I mean, I voted for him. I held my nose and voted for Mitt Romney. But did you honestly think that he could win? I will say this. He could have won if the Southern Baptists would have voted for him. Southern Baptists, most of them, stayed home because they didn't want to vote for a Mormon. And that is I'm telling you the truth. That is the truth. I digress. Vivek Ramaswamy, maybe he should run the Republican Party. Maybe he should be in charge of the RNC. Then you could start bringing some youth to the party. He knows how to use the media of the young, TikTok and whatever else they're using. He knows how to use podcasts to his advantage and everything else. The truth of the matter is, folks, there aren't a whole lot of people 25 or younger listening to radio, watching broadcast television. They're past all. In fact, I mean, you say, do you listen? Trust me, I've asked the questions to a group of 25-year-olds and younger. I spoke to a Belmont College group. It's been 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Not one of them raised their hand when I said, do you guys listen to the radio? They just stared at me like, no, Grandma. We don't listen to the radio. Didn't have a clue who I was. And if I'd have said, well, WTN, blah, blah, would have had no clue. If I would have said, the tax fight, would have had no clue, none. I think Vivek Ramaswamy could reach out to that generation and teach that generation about the values of being a conservative and the values of being a Republican. It's not so bad to be a Republican. It's bad if you're a Republican in name only. That's the bad part, right? You use the name, but you don't believe in the values. You use the name, but you don't believe in less government. You use the name, but you don't believe in less taxes. You use the name and you don't believe in free market. I can go on and on and on down the list. You use the name and you don't believe in the Constitution. You use the name, you don't believe in the First Amendment, free speech, the right to protest, freedom of the press. I can go on. You don't believe in the Second Amendment in its purest form. You're just a Republican in name only. I think Vivek could actually inspire younger people to want to be conservative. And he could reach out. What made the difference in Barack Obama's campaign compared to the Republicans' campaign? He used all the media that the young people were watching or using. He bought ads on YouTube when no one else was buying ads on YouTube, campaign ads. It was a novel idea that Barack Obama used, and it worked. Bill Clinton was the same way. What did he do that no other presidential candidate was doing? No other Republican presidential candidate was doing, namely Bob Dole and George H.W. Bush. May they both rest in peace. He was going on Arsenio Hall and playing the saxophone. He was doing all the things that the cool kids were doing. He wasn't doing just the traditional, stodgy. The Republican Party has got to wake up, or we're going to keep dying off until we're not relevant anymore. And I just have to wonder if Vivek Ramaswamy should think about running the RNC. There's my 2 cents. It's 4:30. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 30 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 63 degrees and rain is in the future here tonight and tomorrow, possibly over the weekend as well. We got a full weather forecast plus the latest traffic report. They're on the way in 5 minutes. Congress finds itself in a familiar place, staring down a looming government shutdown. Lawmakers have a little more than 1 week to pass a federal spending bill to keep the government running. House Republicans met this week to discuss their options. Senate Republicans, for their part, say any spending bill must include fresh border security provisions. Karen Travers has the latest from President Biden.
With Congress again facing a deadline to pass legislation to fund the government and avert a shutdown, President Biden today told reporters he wishes the House would, quote, just get to work.
The idea we're playing games with a shutdown at this moment is just bizarre.
The White House has asked Congress to approve emergency funding for Ukraine and Israel, part of a $106 billion foreign aid request. The president made it clear he doesn't want to see lawmakers pass only parts of that funding.
We ought to be able to combine Ukraine and Israel. We ought to be able, and I'm open to discussions on the border.
And 8 days till the government would shut down if no provisions are secured. Crime in Memphis. News 2 reports that 13 missing children were found after a joint operation to aid in stopping human trafficking. On Thursday, November 2nd and Friday, November 3rd, officials said 6 teams from multiple agencies, including the U.S. Marshals Service and the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, searched 56 locations in the Memphis area. 12 of the kids ranged in age from 11 to 17, and there was also a 2-month infant. They were found and are now out of harm. Now over to the money news, Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now stocks fell as the bond market cranked up the pressure again. The Dow gave up 220 points, the Nasdaq closed down 129, and the S&P fell 35. Sales of 30-year Treasury notes rose on signs that the economy remains solid. Chair Jerome Powell suggests the Fed is in no hurry to raise its benchmark interest rates, with inflation pressures continuing to gradually ease. At the same time, he won't rule out another rate hike at some point to help reduce inflation reaction to the Fed's 2% target level. Fed's comments to a panel presented by the International Monetary Fund. First-time jobless claims dropped last week, falling by 3,000 to 217,000 overall, another sign that the labor market remains strong despite high interest rates. The 4-week moving average, a less volatile measure, inched up by 1,500 to 212,250. Your favorite Hollywood actors are heading back to work now that their unions reached a deal with Hollywood studios.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee, right at home in the woods of Tennessee, right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
It is 4:38. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Thursday, November the 9th, 2 days away from Veterans Day. And as many of you know, I've talked about it a lot. We hold the annual Bourbon Bash down in Williamson County. This year, it will be in Franklin at the factory. And I wanted to bring on the air someone who has partnered with me on this for many years now, and that is Lee Kennedy, he is Leaper's Fork Distillery. Hello, Lee Kennedy. How are you today?
Hey, Pam, I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you and some guys that you know have decided to form an organization, a charity organization called Freedom and Whiskey, and that's who we are benefiting this year with the Bourbon Bash. I wanted you to just take a moment and kind of explain to folks what Freedom and Whiskey is all about. It's a different take on a charity, I think, because a lot of charities are out there that help the wounded soldier, and they're great charities. This has a little bit of a different slant. Are you there?
Pam, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Did you hear all that?
Yeah. So sorry, I got kind of cut off for a minute, but yeah. So thank you for having me. And yeah, Freedom Whiskey is a little different. You know, it was designed to help retiring Joint Special Operations retirees coming out of the military. You know, a lot of these folks, they dedicated their entire lives to protecting our freedoms, and they're highly intelligent. They're highly motivated. A lot of them are retiring at like 41 and 42 years old, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives. Charities out there, like you recognize, that have money earmarked for folks, for vets that have been injured, Gold Star families. This does have a medical component to it, but what we're really trying to do is those people that are retired out of special operations, a lot of them in any kind of way they need. So a lot of them are wanting to go back and getting advanced degrees. So earlier in the year, we were able to fund an operator that wanted to go back and get his master's degree from Duke University. So we were able to step in and help him with a scholarship, which allowed him to pass his GI Bill on to his daughter. His entrepreneurial support. We've gotten actually a parachute rigger that's in special operations. He wants to get into when he retires. And
I
so
tell you what, so I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. Your cell phone is kind of going in and out. So I tell you what, if you can get to a better spot, I'm going to have the producer call you right back, because I think it's kind of important. I want people to really hear some of the specifics about Freedom and Whiskey, if you don't mind, Lee. So I'm going to drop this line, get to kind of a cleaner spot, if you don't mind. And Chris, if you'll get him back on the line. But see, what I love about Lee and some of the other guys that have always helped us, Four Roses has also been with us since the beginning. Leaper's Fork Distillery and Four Roses. And what I am so thankful for is that these guys have believed in me enough to say, we will partner with you, and we believe in the same vision you have about giving back and serving those who have served us. So with Freedom and Whiskey, like I said, it's kind of a different twist on all of that. So that's what we're going to do this Saturday. We're going to raise money for Freedom and Whiskey so that we can help those who are retiring out of the military, who have those special skills, who have those special things. We can help them along the way. We've got them back on the line here. Okay, let's try this signal. See, you're out there in Leaper's Fork, and sometimes things aren't as clear as they could be. Anyway, continue what you were saying, Lee.
Yes. So what I was saying is, you know, we're helping in all manners. You know, like I said, we helped a guy with his scholarship with Duke University. I'm not sure if you heard that.
We did. Yes, heard
We're
that.
also something simple as far as, you know, an operator that was a parachute rigger, and he wanted to get into marine upholstery when he retires. So we were able to get him an internship in a trade school placement to kind of help him, and eventually he wants to start his own business. So we're also doing entrepreneurial support to help folks with business creations, whether that's LLCs, websites. We're also entrepreneurial networking, professional networking. So like I said, these folks that are coming out, they're highly motivated. A lot of them speak multiple languages, and they just kind of need, they've been dedicating their lives to protecting our freedoms in a lot of the most harshest environments in the world. There's folks that we're helping and getting ready to retire that are over in the Middle East right now, doing our bidding, and we don't even really know that in some circumstances. But they really just, because when they're retiring in their early 40s, whatever way we can help them from a business standpoint, like I said, educationally or entrepreneurially, that's what we're trying to step in and help them just in some areas that they weren't familiar. A lot of these people that, like my college roommate, for example, who was the impetus for Freedom Whiskey, he had a 3.9 GPA in engineering. After 9/11 happened, he enlisted, made his way up all the way through the special operations ranks, and was injured pretty good. But he had the whole world at his oyster, and he put that to the side and went and fought for our country and sacrificed a lot. And a lot of those folks are in that same boat. They could have done a lot of other things with their lives, but they decided to put those things aside and go fight for our freedoms. And so it's just our way of kind of helping them transition back into the business world in whatever way we can help. So that's kind of it in the bottom line. And we had Leapers Fort Distillery started it, but we're looking. We've got some other distillery partners that are coming on board in 2024.
Nice.
From Kentucky to Tennessee. Yeah.
Nice. Well, yeah, and you've launched an actual whiskey, right, or an actual bourbon, an actual brown water with the Freedom and Whiskey label as well, and it's actually really. I think I've got 2 bottles, different labels, but 2 bottles of the Freedom and Whiskey stuff myself. I haven't opened them yet. I may save those for some special occasions, maybe at the Bourbon Bash on Saturday. But you've launched that as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So, one way that going back to the Freedom Whiskey, what we do well is we make whiskey, and we have access to special releases from other distilleries as well. So one way that we're raising money for the folks is we started a brand called Freedom and Whiskey, and all the proceeds go to helping the folks. We're just kind of helping facilitate it with our licenses. The first release we did back in the spring of this year was a Leapers Fort Tennessee whiskey. This year, our second release, which will be happening after Bourbon Bash between Thanksgiving and Christmas, is a 7-year-old that just went into bottles today. So we're
nice.
We're using our capabilities and skill sets to to help these retiring operators that just need a bridge a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so that's what the proceeds of the Bourbon Bash will go to as well. We've got some killer kind of things that we'll be auctioning off on Saturday as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my mind kind of is blown at some of the things. Maybe you could help me describe. Like we have some excursion packages, or at least one I know of is like a hunt in Argentina or something like that, isn't it? I mean, I think that's what I heard.
Yeah. We've got some great auction items, live auction and silent auction. That package you're talking about is a dove hunt down to Argentina, which is a great package. We had it donated. There may be a special operator that goes down and is part of that trip that we're trying to get the people that are helping us with this to interact with the folks and kind of get to know them.
Yeah.
It also ranges from things. A lot of these guys making things, they're getting into business of themselves. Are craftsmen. Some great knives that are completely hand done from start to finish. Hand forged. Done by our special operators, and obviously we have a lot of the Nashville swag, that's from our country music.
Yep, it's got a couple of guitars.
That have helped out, and so those are the kind of standard things you see at auctions around Middle Tennessee. But we've got some really cool things that are really tied to that community. The parachute rigger I was telling you about, he's doing these custom gun cases out of reclaimed material from the military, old canvas and things like that. So,
nice.
There's a lot of special kind of bespoke, custom things that'll be there available.
Yeah, awesome.
And obviously whiskey.
Yeah,
we'll
lots of bourbon and lots of whiskey. Absolutely. Rare bottles. It'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. And we'll feed you and most importantly, I mean, you'll have some special operations guys walking around there Saturday too. So you get to meet some of these veterans and those who are still actually currently serving. So that I enjoy that as well. Well, thank you, Lee, for spending time with me today. And you know what? I'll just say this publicly so all that Middle Tennessee can hear. I'm very thankful for you because you didn't know me from Adam, but you believed in the idea years ago, and I just can't thank you enough. Thank you, thank you.
Absolutely, Pam. Well, I'm proud to know you as well and to help out, and I appreciate our partnership, and sorry for the technical difficulties early.
That's all right. Technology always lets us down, but whiskey never does. Talk to you soon, Lee. We will see you on Saturday.
Okay. Thank you, Pam.
It is 4:49. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
New agreements in the Israel-Hamas war over in Gaza. 2 crimes less than half a mile away from each other in Tennessee. Plus, some new rules from the FAA regarding their pilots. Plus, we are monitoring a crash on I-40 eastbound approaching Kingston Springs. We know that was following a police pursuit, and there is an injury there. We're trying to gain some more information on that. Find out more, 5 o'clock, Super Talk, then at 9:07 WTN.
It's funny, Mac, I actually was going to bring that up because traffic is backed up if you're in the Kingston Springs area, Pegram, that area, that area, I-40, right there is backed up pretty good. And we've heard rumors, this is not confirmed, that a trooper's vehicle may have been involved in the crash as well. So, Mac, I'll try to keep on that. You keep on it. We'll get you the information regardless. One of us will this afternoon once we know all the details. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson. 615-737-9986 is our phone number. You can super text there as well. And I think we're live on our Super Talk TV, which is Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. You can find us at Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 62 degrees, a cloudy day in Nashville. Some rain expected later this evening. The latest traffic report, a weather forecast going on in 5 minutes. On the traffic front, I-40 eastbound approaching Kingston Springs. We are monitoring an injury accident there that we know followed a police pursuit. We're trying to figure out more information on that. Stay up to date right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Biden administration says Israel has agreed to daily 4-hour pauses in fighting in Gaza to allow for the safe passage of civilians and humanitarian aid. Andy Field.
U.S. State Department saying that for at least today, the Israeli fighting pause is working.
We saw 106 trucks of humanitarian aid flow into Gaza through the Rafah crossing.
State Department spokesperson Vedant Patel saying the U.S. is warning Israel it is a danger to put a long-term occupying force in Gaza if and when they defeat Hamas.
And right now in Tennessee, two crimes less than half a mile away from each other. Police say a man was shot behind an apartment building on Brown Drive, while another man tried to rob a pizza driver on Hazelwood Drive. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson with what we know as of now.
Police say someone tried to rob a pizza delivery driver at the crossing at Hazelwood apartment complex. Police say the apartment where the pizza was supposed to be delivered was vacant. The shooting happened at the College Point Apartments. A man was found shot behind a building. Police have detained several people. And both back live out here, we're told both incidents are still under investigation. Right now, we don't know the condition or status of the shooting victim.
A fatal hit and run in Tennessee. Fox 17 says that 45-year-old Jeffrey Tidwell was crossing Dickerson Pike last night when he was hit and killed by two cars. First one headed northbound, then by another headed southbound. The first vehicle that struck Tidwell fled the scene. Police found a Nissan Altima nearby that could be responsible. The owner of that car, 43-year-old Latoy Boswell, is wanted for questioning. Anyone with information is asked to call Crime Stoppers. And the FAA is forming a rulemaking committee to look at mental health among the nation's pilots. Alex Stone.
After an Alaska Airlines pilot allegedly tried to crash a plane full of passengers while feeling depressed, the FAA is now forming a committee to provide recommendations on breaking down the barriers that prevent pilots from reporting mental health issues. The FAA says it wants to increase mental health training for medical examiners, and it wants to hire more experts to decrease wait times for decisions on whether a pilot should be allowed to fly.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 5:07. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We call this The Drive. And I'm not really sure why, because I'm looking at the TDOT map and ain't nobody driving anywhere right now. Not anywhere fast. Boy, there is, dark, deep red everywhere on this TDOT map. Are you looking at it, Chris?
I've just pulled it up. Wow, you're right. Yeah.
There's nobody going anywhere. The only place I see that has even just a little bit of green, it looks like it is like 440, but only like one side of 440. The other side looks like it's backed up to about the 21st Avenue side. Then there's some green, and then it's backed up again around the Charlotte Avenue side. So anyway, it's you're not going anywhere fast.
Yeah. You can get out past, you get out past like
the city,
like Briley Parkway on 40 East, you'd be all right. But
yeah,
just good luck getting past that because
because of the airport.
Well,
They've
actually,
there's
a big accident out there on 40 right before Briley.
Gotcha. Well, I was driving yesterday. I was driving from here to the Old Hickory exit off of 24, which is it's not Antioch. I think it's Cane Ridge. It's right before Laverne, I guess. It took me almost 45 minutes to go there, and that's not very far. Traffic was at a standstill at one point. And I couldn't figure out why. I never saw an accident. I guess they've got these new TDOT signs up there that tells you the speed to go. So at one point, it was telling everybody to go 35 miles an hour. And then, I don't know, a mile, when you finally got that mile after about 15 minutes, then the next set of signs read 45 miles an hour. So I don't know if it was just, I don't know if they figured out a way to progressively speed you up or slow you down if there's an accident along the way. But anyway, it was 7 o'clock when I left here.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that. And I didn't see any kind of accident whatsoever. So I cursed, and then I cursed again, and then I cursed the TDOT gods. And then can't somebody do something about this? I'm screaming. It's just, I remember there was a time in this area you could drive, past 6 o'clock, you didn't really have a lot of traffic. You could drive pretty quickly to wherever it is you needed to go. These days, if you don't get on the interstate by 3:30, you might be stuck for a minute. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah, it definitely lasts longer just because I've noticed the change in it since I've been working this evening shift going home. When I first started, I could just blow right through downtown and be out of town and on my way home easily. But now, I'd say 3 to 4 days out of the week, there's some sort of traffic jam, accident, or something that's going on.
Or somebody slowed down and screwed it all up.
That takes me, 10, 15 minutes just to get out of the downtown area.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Even in the last, you've been doing this for about 2 years now, haven't you? Going on 3 or 2
2 and a half, I think.
Yeah, so
something like that.
That's crazy to me, which also tells me it's going to get worse if they don't do something about this. And where are they? I don't think they're doing a lot of construction right now on the interstates, are they? Well, they are at the airport.
Yeah.
They are doing, but that construction doesn't seem to be hampering traffic. That's just that backup you see at the airport is just
people
going into the airport. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure that you and Brian talk about this. That Brian doesn't have to drive in all of this.
Yeah, he's got a very hectic commute.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He has to get Grogu out of the way.
Yep.
And then make it up the stairs.
That's the challenge. Sometimes there can be a slowdown on those stairs. But.
And I say all this 100% jealous. Just understand, it is pure jealousy that I make fun. Anyway, glad to have you with us today as you are rotting in traffic. We do have a situation that was happening over there in the Kingston Springs area. I think Mac mentioned that might have been some sort of high-speed chase over in that area. I'm seeing getting messages from the super texters saying that they thought perhaps a trooper's vehicle was involved in a wreck that was over there. I don't have any confirmation on that, but if this was somebody that was driving by, I mean, obviously they would know more so than I would sitting here in the studio. I'll say a little prayer, of course, for whoever may have been involved in that situation. Now, speaking of situations, it has now been revealed that the college student from Belmont University has passed away. She was a New Jersey college student, Jillian Ludwig, 18 years old. She, I believe the announcement came early this morning that she died after she was hit by what police believe was a stray bullet fired by a man who was arrested. He was arrested, and I think they said he has admitted to shooting or firing at that vehicle. And people remain outraged. I can't imagine the pain that the Ludwig family, what they're going through right now. This young lady was just walking through a park area near Belmont University when this happened. Now, I've been trying to do a little bit of research on the man that actually did the shooting. His name is Shaquille Taylor, alleged to have done the shooting. I guess I have to make sure I say that. He was arrested, faces charges of aggravated assault and evidence tampering. He was being held on a $280,000 bond. I don't know, Mac may know or somebody else may know if he appeared in court today and if his charges were upgraded. I'm sure at some point they will upgrade those charges to possibly murder or what have you. But I haven't heard at this point. But what I have heard is the long record that this man has. He was arrested in connection with a shooting, facing charges of aggravated assault and evidence tampering, being held on a $280,000 bond. I told you that. He was previously accused of shooting into a car in 2021, while a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old were in the back seat of that car. He was originally charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and admitted to that crime, but the judge dismissed the case in that one, I believe is what this says. This is the Daily Mail's version of the story. His criminal history began in 2011 when police seized a .40 caliber handgun from him during an incident when he was a teenager. In 2015, he was charged with robbery and given probation. The next year, Taylor was sentenced to a year in jail when he violated that probation and charged with aggravated burglary. He was arrested again in 2021 when he and another man fired a gun into a car with children, and he was charged with aggravated assault. Police said he and another man shot at a woman while she was driving with her 2 children in the car, at least 2 bullets hitting that vehicle. The charges were later dismissed and Taylor released from custody. After 3 court-appointed psychologists testified that he was incompetent to stand trial earlier this year. Under both federal and state law, mentally incompetent defendants can't be prosecuted, but he also didn't qualify to go into a mental health facility. Now, I don't understand why. I believe it is the New York Post, as their story has been released about all of this. It has been described that Taylor had some sort of brain infection when he was a child, like very, very young, maybe even possibly a baby. And that brain infection left him mentally disabled. He thinks like a kindergartner now, even though he's an adult. Now, I have to tell you, I do feel empathy for this man. I don't know where his family is. I don't know if he has any siblings. So far, we don't have any of that information at this point. But he is a danger to other people. A kindergartner probably does not understand right from wrong, or at least maybe doesn't understand reality that this gun can actually hurt somebody. If you shoot and you hit a human, it could kill them. I'm giving this person the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he does know. My next question would be, how does he get his hands on a gun? Is he just running around with the wrong crowd that takes advantage of his mental disability at this point? I have lots of questions here. More and more questions every day. Well, it's only been a couple of days, but I'm trying to find the information. Let's see. Unity, the mayor's calling for it. The New York Post has all of these, now I'm going to cry, all these wonderful pictures of this young girl playing a guitar. So apparently she was in a band. Excuse me. She was in a band. She loved music. Someone at Belmont said she was always at a concert supporting her musician friends. She wanted to be in the music business like so many people do when they go to Belmont University. So many people do when they move to Nashville, Tennessee. Big, big, big dreams. This is a town for dreams. I'm looking at her. Oh, man. Music business major. I'm looking at her again on the stage with some other musicians. Have no idea if it was good or bad. Doesn't matter. She had her dreams. I'm trying to find the information about, well, it doesn't matter. He had some sort of brain injury when he was a child, or brain infection that has caused him to be this way. That tells me he should be incarcerated in a mental facility, and that's where he should stay. He is a danger to society. I was given Glenn Funk the business yesterday, but now I have to, I guess, emotion there, but I have to ask, did he follow the law? Did he actually do everything he was supposed to do? I would hope that he would have warned somebody that this man is on the streets and we got to find a way to get him out off the streets. Instead of it was just dismissed, and on his way he went. Actually, there's a story from Channel 4, an interview with Funk about problems with the criminally insane or the mentally impaired. And he warned that something like this could happen. And this was an interview months and months and months ago. We'll talk about that coming up. But we're going to check in with Mac Morey here in a few minutes, and we're going to get the latest on the wild war. What is it? The wild war. I can't say it. Wild world of Mac, or whatever it's called. Let me go get my tongue out of the freezer and replace it with this one that's just, I don't know what's wrong. And then we'll talk about it coming back. It is 5:20. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
My name is Jessica Robertson, and I was like him, addicted to more. I remember things really spiraled out of control for me and him both. And we had hit rock bottom. I couldn't even function enough to keep a job. I was so isolated. He was here 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks' time, the difference that this program had made, that God had made in his life, you know, and I just remember I wanted that. I wanted that too. I was able to heal and reset. I had a great counselor, great staff members. You know, the love of God is all in this place. And that's what's helped me. And seeing people walk through those doors at first just broken, just like I was. And then a few months later, get to see that light come back on in them. You know, I know that's God working in them.
Senator Joe Manchin will tell you if he's running for re-election next year. Some wildlife deaths in Tennessee, plus a new rule coming from the FAA. We'll tell you all about it. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh.
Yeah, that's your cue,
Oh,
Pamela.
that's me? Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. It's Max
I
Wide
still don't
World
know
of
yet.
Sports.
So it's after the agony of defeats. It's Mac Morris.
Yes.
It's
There we
Mac
go.
Morris.
Can you say wide world of sports?
Wild World. Wild World of Sports. I did it. Boy, I was having a hard
Close enough,
time
close
earlier. Anyway,
Oh,
what's
that's
happening? We've got some college football.
That's right.
Like on the way.
That's
like
right.
People they can't wait for.
It's a big college football weekend.
It really is.
You know,
Okay, so what are you looking at?
Earlier in the show, I knew you were talking with Matt Murphy. You guys were talking country music and
Yeah.
Bourbon Bash and
Yeah.
how Ole Miss and Georgia, the game's right during the Bourbon Bash that Matt will be at. He'll have to have his phone out. That's a big game. Number 1 versus number 10. Lane Kiffin's offense versus that, pounding, tenacious defense of the Bulldogs. That's going to be a very fun game to watch. And then you've got right here in Tennessee, you've got the Volunteers taking on another solid team. Weber, your team just went off against them in the Missouri Tigers. And this has been a team that kind of just came out of nowhere as the season's gone along. But they've had some really solid wins. I mean, even their losses have been good. 30-21 against Georgia. It's not a bad loss.
That's not bad.
No, that game was
They're
close.
tough.
That
Yeah.
game was close up until the fourth quarter, really. You guys started to pull ahead, take control. LSU, 49-39. Their defense let up too many points there. They beat a good K-State team. They beat a good Kentucky team. And now they're going to face, at home in Columbia, Missouri, a solid Vols team that's had some woes now and then, but overall, number 13 are the Vols. So this is going to be a fun game. They've got a great quarterback, Missouri does, Brady Cook. And they've got a good leading running back in Cody Schrader, who will probably surpass the 1,000-yard rushing mark this game.
He was tough. He gave the Bulldogs fits.
Yeah, he breaks
Schrader
tackles.
did.
He can catch passes out of the backfield. He's kind of an all-purpose back, which is, and he's kind of Brady Cook's, I can't think of the word, but he's kind of his fallback. He's his emergency option. He feels really safe getting it to Cody Schrader. So it's going to be an extremely fun game. I'm looking for some more offense from the Vols, just to have kind of a blow-up game. You saw it last week, but it was versus, Connecticut. They're 1-8, so you'd hope they would put up a 50 burger. They did. It was great. Tennessee was flying around, but I want to see it against a good opponent, against the Missouri Tigers.
And it looks like, so if these rankings are correct, Tennessee's 14, aren't they? And Missouri 16, so they're close in the rankings there. So it should be a pretty good game. Should be a pretty decent game.
Mac, where's your worry meter? Where are you on this one?
Since
you're the Vol.
For this game, I'm gonna go.
Are you worried?
I'm gonna go like a 6. I'm not worried. Like this is a game where
they're on the road. The Vols are, so
they're on the
that's
road.
true too.
This is a Missouri team that has bulletin board material in droves. Still, no one believes in them. This is a Missouri Tigers team that wasn't supposed to be ranked, wasn't supposed to be in the running for, SEC games against these really good opponents, LSU, Georgia, now Tennessee. They've been close in both those games, and Tennessee's one where they're going, you know what? We're at home. We've been away those other games. This is our chance.
Yeah.
We've faced some good opponents. We know what, high speed, a lot of talent SEC football looks like now. Missouri is going to come in prepared, and so I want Tennessee to do the same and come in and get some offense going. Let's go, Josh.
I hear all your excitement, and you've mentioned all other teams but Alabama.
Okay.
What the hell?
Well, the FCC has rules on cursing, Pamela, so I'm not really going to try and break those. But okay, if you must. Alabama going up against aforementioned Kentucky at Kentucky. So Kentucky's had some peaks and valleys this season, but overall a solid opponent. But you guys, I don't know what the spread is in that game, but I imagine y'all should take care of them by a few scores.
I would think so, but I don't want to get too cocky. You guys always complain about Alabama supporters being too cocky. So I'm just going to go. We're going to give it our best, guys. We're going to do our best.
Alabama fans are kind of in a lose-lose because no matter what you guys do at this point, it's like, oh my gosh, there they go. And you're like, God, we're trying to do something. We're trying to be modest. Golly. No,
And look, I mean, at the rest of the year, the next game is Chattanooga and Alabama. And then, of course, the big Alabama-Auburn game.
Which really isn't.
Auburn's bad.
Yeah, they're pretty terrible.
They're not great this year. So anyway, it's not the, I would say, not the most difficult schedule for the rest of the year.
Yeah, Alabama's definitely gearing up for Atlanta.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, that
They just
SEC
gotta take care of
championship game.
business there.
That's imperative to their season, and if they can go to that college football playoff, and in the manner of which they win these next 3 easy games, I think is going to be huge when we get to the CFP rankings, because
that's true.
They're 8 right now, and if they just crush these 3 teams, I mean, just bulldoze them. Recency bias is a thing. No matter, you can't get rid of it. That's gonna be good for Alabama fans such as yourself, Pamela.
Thank you, Mr. Vol. It is 5:30. That is what's up in the wild world of sport. Golly, why can't I? Wild world of sports with Mac Maury. He's got the news now. It's 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WGN.
5:31. I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 61 degrees in Nashville. A full weather forecast. The latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin announces he will not seek re-election next year. It opens up an opportunity for Republicans to take back the Senate. The 75-year-old Manchin held his seat in the red state since 2010. Manchin, in his announcement, talked of unifying the nation by other means.
I've made one of the toughest decisions of my life and decided that I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate. But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle and bring Americans together.
Manchin is not ruling out a presidential run. Wildlife deaths in Tennessee. News 2 says that a mama bear along with 2 cubs were killed due to a vehicle collision. There were 2 cubs that were living, and they had to get moved out of the area, and the 2 bear cubs that ended up being killed, they weighed about 50 pounds each. The TWRA did not have any further information about the bears or the driver involved in that crash. And the FAA is forming a rulemaking committee to look at mental health among the nation's pilots. Alex Stone.
After an Alaska Airlines pilot allegedly tried to crash a plane full of passengers while feeling depressed, the FAA is now forming a committee to provide recommendations on breaking down the barriers that prevent pilots from reporting mental health issues. The FAA says it wants to increase mental health training for medical examiners, and it wants to hire more experts to decrease wait times for decisions on whether a pilot should be allowed to fly.
And that is the latest news, traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN 538. Pamela Furr, glad to be with you. In for Brian Wilson. He will return tomorrow, and he will have a new, just a new lease on life because the procedure went well, right?
Yeah, he's going to do the entire show standing up doing jumping jacks. I think that's what he's going to do.
And he won't sound winded at all.
No, he's going to run up and down the stairs between, segments. Just to get some energy out.
Just to burn off some of that energy because it's been, he hasn't had that kind of energy in a while. All right. Anyway, I'm boring myself with this conversation. It is a Thursday evening. It's dark out there. It looks like you're still rotting in traffic. We do have a situation I want to remind you of, though, over in the Kingston Springs area off of 40. There was some sort of police incident or trooper incident, and I believe the traffic is still kind of backed up there. I have heard, I'm not confirming any of this, but I have heard that the trooper is okay, but his car is pretty banged up. And I think it was a high-speed chase of some sort. That's all I know really at this point, and that's just from a super texter. Regardless, though, looking at this traffic map, when you're looking at traffic all around Nashville, there are some black areas now. And I guess that means you're not moving.
Oh, good grief.
Do you see it? I mean, you're just sitting there.
Yeah, that's ugly.
You're just rotting a little bit. So just know that it's going to be a bit of a long drive as you go home today. I'm just glad that you're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Before we took a little break for sports and a preview of what kind of stuff we're looking at for college football on Saturday, we were talking about this horrible shooting that happened here in Nashville in the last couple of days, where an 18-year-old Belmont student was shot in the head. And it was by a man who, by all accounts, what I'm seeing now, he is mentally challenged. He has the mind of a kindergartner. He had some sort of brain infection when he was just a baby and has had damage ever since. And I said this earlier, I want to say this if this is the first time you're hearing this. I have empathy for that. This is no fault of his own. However, it's obvious that he is a danger to society. So how it is we keep releasing him back into society is beyond me. I was pretty harsh on Glenn Funk, the DA, yesterday. I was pretty harsh on the judge that let him go yesterday. And I still think that they deserve some of that. But if the law states that you have to let them go, don't we need to do something about the law? And isn't this what we were shouting to the rooftops months ago when the Covenant church school shootings happened? Isn't this what we were shouting? Do something. Do something. We have to do something about those who have mental problems who want to take up weapons. I guess my next question, though, we got to find out how he got his gun or how he's been able to get guns all these years if he has the mind of a kindergartner. And I guess my next thing is if he would have been charged with those crimes. He has this long list of criminal history, aggravated assault, aggravated this, theft, etc. If he had been charged with those crimes, he wouldn't have been legally able to get a gun. So did he get this legally or was it illegally? Was it a bunch of friends he's been running around with he was able to get the gun? Did he steal the gun? I still have a lot of questions in this particular case. But I want to share with you before we take your phone call, 615-737-9986. That's the phone number. And we also have our super text line that is open as well. But Jeremy Finley, who's a reporter at News Channel 4, and a friend, a former colleague of mine. I used to work over there years ago. And I am a fan of Jeremy Finley and his writing and his reporting, and have been for a while. He does a really good job. He wrote this piece. When did he publish this? It was last night at about 8 o'clock, just 12 days before police and Belmont student Jillian Ludwig was shot and critically injured, now shot to death, by a man who had been recently released from jail without prosecution. District Attorney Glenn Funk predicted crime such as this could occur. That's interesting. So 12 days, so now I would say 14, maybe 15 days ago. Apparently, Funk spoke to Jeremy Finley with WSMV4 Investigates for an investigation that they were doing showing hundreds of criminals in Nashville who can't be prosecuted because they are deemed incompetent to stand trial. Did you hear what I just said? Hundreds of criminals in Nashville who can't be prosecuted because they are deemed incompetent to stand trial. Because district attorneys are forbidden by the Supreme Court to prosecute those who are determined not to be fit to understand the trial process or the crimes they've committed, their charges are dismissed and they're released back out onto the streets, often reoffending. Funk expressed his concerns in the interview for potential new victims. He said, "It's unbelievably frustrating because we know there's going to be another victim in the next few weeks." And there was. Jeremy continues, "Our investigation found that an estimated 229 criminals in Nashville who commit misdemeanor crimes and are found to be mentally incompetent to stand trial are released back onto the streets without prosecution. That number is likely higher when those with felony charges are also deemed to be incompetent to stand trial." Let me say that again. That number is likely to be higher, according to Jeremy Finley at Channel 4. Higher than 229 criminals walking the streets of Nashville because they are deemed incompetent to stand trial. Marquitas Hodge, a criminal with more than 100 charges, was featured in our reporting as a person with the incompetent designation who commits misdemeanor crimes like criminal trespass and indecent exposure, but can't be prosecuted. Indecent exposure. That makes me want to vomit. That makes me think of kids who are going to school that might get exposed to this person who apparently has mental issues. Just before our first story aired in their series called In Crisis, and you can find that series on Channel 4's website. They haven't paid me to say any of this. I just found this story very, very interesting. But go to their website, WSMV.com, you can find it. Just before our first story aired in our In Crisis reporting, the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities recommended Hodge be committed to a mental health facility for an involuntary hospitalization. If that happens, well, here's my first question. What do you mean if that happens? If they're recommending it, it needs to happen. But anyway, if that happens, Hodge will likely never be deemed competent to stand trial. But he will be committed for an indefinite period, getting treatment, and will be off the streets indefinitely of Nashville. But in Taylor's case, for whatever reason, it's different. I want to know why. So we'll continue this in just a moment. Again, this is a story from Jeremy Finley at News Channel 4. It's 5:48. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
An update on the now dead Belmont student after getting shot by a stray bullet just a block away from campus. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn issues a subpoena to have the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs released, and another government shutdown could be on the way. Those stories and more. 6 o'clock, Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Interesting. Jeffrey Epstein. I haven't heard about that case in a while. That's fascinating to me. I forgot all about flight logs and that kind of stuff.
And I'll say you'll get to hear even more about it right on the station tomorrow morning as well.
Yeah? Why?
Yeah. I mean, you'll have to find out 6 o'clock.
Oh, you're going to tell me more in the 6 o'clock news.
About how you'll hear more about it.
Tomorrow
morning.
So
okay.
it's
So
a
that
tease
tells-
about a tease.
It's a tease on a tease.
Tease on a tease.
Teaseception.
And I have a feeling it involves Dan Mandis.
Close.
Okay. Close but no cigar. All right. Well, very cool. Very cool. Thank you very much, McMorray. That's interesting to me. Now, we're talking about an article from Jeremy Finley, who spoke to Glenn Funk just 2 weeks or so ago about offenders, criminals who are not competent to stand trial. And I find it very interesting. You can find the article. It's called In Crisis, the whole series that Jeremy Finley and his investigative team have put together on Channel 4. But there's important distinctions to and designations between misdemeanor offenders and felony offenders that are deemed incompetent. A felony offender determined to be incompetent is determined to have a mental illness, then funding exists that that can send that offender to a mental hospital to be evaluated for 30 days. But for misdemeanor offenders, there is no state funding, so that's why they let them go. Is that not weird? So it's too expensive for local municipalities to afford the expense. But for felonies, they do. But here's what I don't understand. I'm looking at the law, and I think I'm right here. Aggravated assault in Tennessee is a felony. So what happened with this case?
6 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 60 degrees and expecting some rain here later tonight in the mid-state. Latest forecast and a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. A crime update in Tennessee. The man accused of shooting and now killing 18-year-old Belmont student Jillian Ludwig has died. Shaquille Taylor was shooting at a black sedan in the Edge Hill area, and a stray bullet pierced Ludwig while she was walking in a park. Taylor was ruled incompetent for trial back in April of this year for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge. Taylor remains in jail on a $280,000 bond. Ludwig's family says that losing their daughter will forever change the fabric of their lives. And Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn has filed an amendment issuing a subpoena to release the Epstein flight logs.
Numerous allegations of human trafficking and sexual abuse surrounding Mr. Epstein. I think it is very important that we identify everybody that was on that plane and how many trips they took on that plane and the destinations to which they arrived.
You can hear Blackburn speak on this issue and the subpoena live right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN during the Chris Hand Show tomorrow at 9:05. Some news in the Middle East. The Pentagon says there have been 4 new drone or rocket attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria since last night's retaliatory strikes against the Iranian-backed militia groups believed to be responsible. A defense official says the new attacks caused no damage. This brings the total number of attacks to U.S. and coalition forces in Syria and Iraq to at least 46 times since October 17th. Mick Mulroy.
The significant issue right now is what is going to be a level of response by the U.S. military that would actually deter Iran through their Iranian-backed proxies in Iraq and Syria from these continuous attacks against U.S. positions.
And right now in the Volunteer State, Channel 4 says that a shooting on Tuesday at Morristown apartment complex put Morristown Hamlin West High School into a lockdown, along with some nearby child care agencies. The shooting injured a 17-year-old boy. Another 17-year-old was arrested. Both of the teens were students in the school system, but the shooting was not on school grounds. The victim's in stable condition, while the suspect remains in custody. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon. It is 6 after 6, 6:06. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on The Drive. He'll be back tomorrow, I promise. I'm glad, though, that I've had this opportunity to spend a couple of hours with you yesterday and today. Thank you for letting me do that. But again, Brian will be back tomorrow. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. You can also super text us at that same number as well if you would like to get in on any of our conversations that we are having today. We've been doing a bit of a deep dive into the mental capacity of that shooter who is responsible, in my opinion, for the death of, because I have to say allegedly and all that, because he hasn't been convicted of anything, right? So I'm trying to do my legal best to phrase it properly. He is allegedly responsible for the death of an 18-year-old Belmont University student who was just getting her life started, who was just getting involved in the music community, who was just getting involved in life and dreams, all of that. And it was cut short by someone who is deemed at least incompetent to stand trial. And from what I'm reading about this man, he was considered, let me get this right. He was not deemed to have a mental illness, but rather an intellectual disability, which meant he was sent to a different department, if you will, and not an actual mental facility, right? The DIDDS, I explained what that was earlier. Let me do that again here for those of you who are just tuning in. It is, stand by, I'm finding it. It's like the Department of Intellectual Disabilities and something else. Hold on. Well, I can't find it readily right at this moment. But two of those doctors, DIDDS doctors, as well as another from Vanderbilt's forensic evaluation team, found that this man was not committable. So it's two doctors from DIDS and another forensic evaluation team found that they could not commit him. Now that to me is unfathomable. I was angry yesterday. My emotion is shifted today to sympathy, empathy, tears, and quite frankly, fear of walking around in Nashville, minding your own business, and someone who is incompetent to stand trial could have a gun and could shoot me and could kill me. And I don't want to feel that way on the streets of Nashville. And I'm not talking about downtown Nashville. I'm not talking about the hood. We're talking about Belmont University, a park right off of Belmont University where this happened. It could happen anywhere, especially if what Jeremy Finley has been reporting in his series In Crisis from Channel 4. We know there's going to be another victim. That's a quote from Davidson County DA Glenn Funk. So what do? What can you do? Pass some laws? Legislation? Right now, I explained this a little earlier, if it's a felony offender determined to be incompetent, if that offender is determined to have a mental illness, then funding exists to send that offender to a mental hospital to be evaluated for 30 days. Well, this man was not found to have a mental illness, but what did I say? Intellectually disabled, which meant he was not sent to a mental facility. Legislation introduced during the special session calls for the state to pay for competency training for misdemeanor offenders, which wouldn't help in this particular case. The legislation passed the House, but the Senate opted not to take it up. There's also a complaint that the mental facilities that we do have normally don't have enough beds. So if you find someone that needs to be involuntarily committed and you don't have the beds for them, then what happens? That person is hospital. I mean, they stay at hospitals until, or jails, until you can find the bed space. And if you have very few facilities, you're not going to find the bed space. We do have a mental crisis in this country. And quite frankly, we have a mental health crisis. I meant to say mental health, not mental health crisis here in the state of Tennessee. We have a mental health crisis in Nashville. Hell, we probably have a mental health crisis in this building. If you really get down to it, there are probably people in this building, down the street, at that Mexican restaurant right across the street, at BMI over there. I mean, you can just shake a finger and find that somebody is having a mental problem and they can't afford to get help. If their insurance doesn't cover it, then they have to pay out of pocket. If they don't have insurance, they have to pay out of pocket. Going to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a counselor is not cheap at all. I know this. I have a psychologist in my life, and I've had to see a psychiatrist in my life. I have anxiety issues. So I'm not on it now, but I have been on medication for anxiety in the past. I probably should be on some now. Driving in traffic, honestly, sometimes can send me a bit over the edge. I may or may not have a CBD oil gummy thingy to kind of take the edge off and calm me down a little bit. I digress here. I'm sorry. It's expensive. So you don't have enough psychologists. You don't have enough counselors. You don't have enough psychiatrists. And when you do, it takes 3 months, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months to see them? And if you're in a mental health crisis, that 6-month appointment is not going to help. When you're in a mental health crisis, having no money to pay for it is not going to help. When you're in a mental health crisis, not having insurance to pay for it, it's not going to help you right at that moment. So what do? You have people who are mentally challenged, who end up homeless on the streets, committing crimes. I described one in this article from Jeremy Finley. 100 times he's been arrested for misdemeanors, and 100 times they've said he's not competent to stand trial for his misdemeanors. Petty crimes and indecent exposure with this guy, roaming the streets of Nashville. Tennessee's got some great things that we can offer anybody who moves here. Low taxes. The views are incredible. If you don't live in Nashville and you don't have to work in Nashville, you don't have to worry about traffic. That's one of the bad things. But we have some great benefits to being a Tennessean. I love this state. I'm from North Carolina. I moved here as soon as I could. But these kinds of situations make you want to move away. Or at least go to some rural, I said it, I can't, that's usually a word I have a problem with, but move to some rural part of Tennessee. Like Bon Aqua or Lizard Lick. Or whatever, where you don't have to worry about being shot by somebody who's deemed incompetent to stand trial for any of the other crimes that he has committed. What a situation and predicament we're in, for crying out loud. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. You can super text or you can call. Let's go to Brian in Antioch. Hi, Brian.
Oh, that was a quick pickup. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Just commenting, the indecent exposure. Now, please don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. I am a CCP holder. I am a former Marine. No, there's no such thing as a former Marine. Our birthday is tomorrow. I am a Marine. The gun thing definitely needs to be addressed. The indecent exposure, just wanted to comment. If I was walking through a park and had to go and I went to go against a tree, I could get cited for indecent exposure.
If someone saw you, yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's not like he flashed a bunch of
No. This man has flashed quite a few people that I was referring to in the story.
I never heard that. I just heard indecent exposure. That's all I heard.
Yeah. Okay. So you missed the story that I was telling earlier in the program of a guy here in Nashville who has been arrested 100 times. His name is Marquitas Hodge, a criminal with more than 100 charges. He has been considered incompetent, has that designation. He commits misdemeanor crimes like criminal trespass and indecent exposure, and not just for peeing on a tree. But he can't be prosecuted. Can't be prosecuted.
I totally disagree with that. For what it's worth, I totally disagree with that.
But do me a favor. The next time you need to pee, make sure it's on a tree that's not in front of anybody.
Well, I normally try to.
Okay. But when you got to go, you got to go? All right. Thanks, Brian.
When you got to go, you got to go. Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, I've been there. I ain't saying there isn't a tree somewhere in Tennessee that I've been next to. Just saying. Raymond, I'm kidding mostly. Hey, Raymond, thank you for calling WTN.
Hey, glad to talk to you, Pamela. I've been listening for a long time, been in the Nashville area since probably 2004.
Nice.
And, this struck a chord with me when I heard this yesterday and, over the weekend. And it's just this is reminiscent of some just recent, de facto kind of, court, repercussions. Like they're not really doing their job. Glenn Funk, this reminded me of that story a couple years ago where the gentleman on East Nashville was just carjacked and the three juveniles shot him, and then those guys, my neighbor was as closely associated with the lead singer of that band. And those guys they basically just let him off with slight penalties. And then somebody, in California, that the woman who gets shot on a pier, and then people don't talk about this stuff, but that guy, didn't he get off too? This is more of just a symptom of just the judicial system and how weak the penalties are. And Glenn Funk is de facto, who was this person's ward? If he was incapable of standing trial or incapable of,
before,
yeah, I mean, who was his ward? And why is this person not responsible? Was this man, does he have the mind of a child?
That's according to a New York Post article. They said that he has the mind of a kindergartner. So you're right. Who's taking care of this kid, this man?
Right. I mean, exactly. And that person should be held accountable too. That person is their ward. So that person is culpable. I think Glenn Funk is responsible. There's a lot of levels of responsibility to go around. Overall, it's ridiculous, and it's the legislature, it's the courts, it's the system of weak penalties, and it just sickens me. And I thought about this yesterday, and I could not believe it. I was telling my wife, I said, so unfortunate. This is not who we are as a city. This is not who we are as Nashville. I'm actually from Hendersonville. I live in Hendersonville. I'm on my way to Dover, but I'm so glad I got in and had an opportunity to express my thoughts about the responsibility and how, when they let somebody like this out back on the street and they're incompetent to stand trial, somebody's responsible for that person. Somebody signed for that person.
Right.
It's
right.
just ridiculous.
Thank you very much, Raymond, and thank you for your passion on this. I appreciate the phone call. Someone, a super texter, just sent this question: can he stand trial now? We're talking about the alleged shooter of this young teenager. This young teenager, Belmont University student. Can this guy stand trial now? That's a very good question. Now that it's upgraded to murder, will he be found incompetent, and will they just let him go? Or will they involuntarily commit him now? Because if he was found not, what's the word I'm looking for? If they found that they could not commit him because he didn't meet the criteria, then what's changed in 4 months, 6 months? It's so frustrating. All right, we'll take a break. 615-737-9986. It is 6:22. I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
My name is Jessica Robertson, and I was like him, addicted to more. I remember things really spiraled out of control for me and him both. And we had hit rock bottom. I couldn't even function enough to keep a job. I was so isolated. He was here 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks' time, the difference that this program had made, that God had made in his life, and I just remember I wanted that. I wanted that too. I was able to heal and reset. I had a great counselor, great staff members. The love of God is all in this place. And that's what's helped me. And seeing people walk through those doors at first just broken, just like I was. And then a few months later, get to see that light come back on in them. I know that's God working in them.
It is 627. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson. Thank you very much, Mac. We'll do that news at 6:30. We're taking your phone calls, 615-737-9986. Again, I think it is a topic that we're all, at this point, really involved in when we're talking about the mental health crisis we have, those deemed incompetent that are still walking the streets who are criminal, and what we can do here in the state of Tennessee, and more specifically in Metro Nashville, about this problem. 615-737-9986. Let's go to April in Red Boiling Springs. How you doing, April?
I'm fine, Miss Pamela. I'm very honored to be able to speak with you. I wanted to talk about the fact that, even, this man who's incompetent, blah, 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 even if they institutionalize them, say like we had institutions for people who are criminally or are not able to care for themselves, we don't have the staff anymore. Nobody wants to come and do the work because it's dangerous work taking care of mentally ill people. We don't have the staff for it at all. Nobody even wants to learn how to take care of others. You got the doctors, you got the nurses. They get all the big money for going to college and doing what they do. But then you got the girl or the guy who's taking care of them, doing the physical work that takes to take care of mentally ill people. You don't even have the staff for that. Nobody even wants to go to school for it.
May I ask you, April, is that something that you've been involved with in your life?
Yes, ma'am. I've been a CNT for 33 years, and I work in geriatrics mostly, but we get a lot of mentally ill people in geriatrics as well, and childlike people that wind up in geriatrics instead of being in institutions that are of their age and culture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Type of places.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because you're right. We got mentally ill people down there in Nashville and all over the country who are wandering around with no place to be and no place to do, and then they're out here acting like fools, shooting things and killing people. I mean, it's so sad.
Yeah.
For this family.
It
and
really is.
we need a better system. Somebody needs to step up. Maybe, I don't know. We need to challenge people to be more than just doctors and nurses. To help. So we can have facilities. We need facilities.
We need facilities. And I tell you, thank you, April.
You should not turn him loose.
Yeah, they should have never turned him loose. I appreciate your time. Thank you for what you've done in your career, because obviously that is a service to other people. So thank you for doing that. And I think April said something that I think is true as we continue to dissect what happened. The truth of the matter is the system. The entire system is failing us. It's failing the guy who shot this young girl, and it's obviously failing that young girl all the way around. Failures. 6:31, I'm Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 6:39. I am Pamela Furr in for Brian Wilson on the drive. He'll be back tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to that because that means it's Friday. It's not because I have not enjoyed my time with you. I absolutely enjoy my time with you. I enjoy seeing, Chris Webber over there and Mac Morey over there and, Jack Womack stomping the halls saying there's traffic to be reported. There's traffic. So, yeah, anyway, but it's going to be Friday tomorrow. And then that means Saturday's the Bourbon Bash. And I hope you've got your tickets. BourbonBashTix.com, an event that has been going on since, I believe, 2015, maybe even 2014. But definitely 2015. I've got to play this for you. I hope this translates well on the radio, and then we'll get back to your calls, John and Scott and Frank, if you'll hold on just a second. Because as we're talking about people that really should not be on the streets, I have to wonder if this woman who was pulled over for suspicion of DUI, if she should be wandering the streets. You have to hear this. Hat tip to Robbie Starbuck who posted it. I don't know where he got it, but this woman, she's, you know what? I'm going to play it and maybe you can just roll your eyes. There's about 3 minutes here, so I'll put in some commentary. I'll try not to play. And there are some beeps, so all the curse words are out, so that, thank God. I won't lose my license or anything to broadcast and radio. But she says she has anxiety over generational trauma with white people. She's white, but she claims that she's an indigenous person and she's non-binary. So therefore, they should not even talk to her about DUI. All right, here we go. Let's see if this translates on the radio.
On.
Nothing.
Why are you driving in the wrong way of traffic?
No, I just got changed around. I just moved here like 2 months ago.
Okay.
I just got changed around.
Okay. Do you understand what's going on though?
Yes.
You're going into oncoming traffic.
I know, and I just decided that it was better just to turn around really quick.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. I just have like really bad social anxiety and stuff.
I get you.
I don't want to step out whenever you're...
Yeah, they asked her to step out of the car. They're fast forwarding themselves on this clip. So they asked her to step out of the car. She gave her driver's license to them, but she goes, I just decided to change the way I was going. And so now they're like, step out of the car. She goes, I don't want to. I have social anxiety. All right, I'm sorry. That's funny. All right, here we go.
Anxiety and stuff.
I get you.
I don't want to step out whenever you're asking for stuff.
Okay, well, we're past that. Just go ahead and step out.
As an indigenous person.
She's getting out of the car.
Right back here, please. Miss Perry?
Well, I'm non-binary, so.
Okay. What do you go by?
It's Kai.
How can I refer to you tonight? Kai? Okay. Hey,
Kai.
I'm smelling alcohol.
I know.
How much have you consumed tonight?
Like probably 3 drinks.
I smell alcohol. No. How much have you had? 3 drinks. Okay, that's funny.
I need to run you through some tests right now. Stand facing me, please.
But I just want you to know that I also have very bad social anxiety.
You and me both.
Okay.
Okay. Any recent head trauma, traumatic brain injuries, anything I need to know about?
Mental, yes.
Well, at least she knows. So he's trying to do the eye test. There's an eye test that they give you. And I only know this because I helped train some young cadets at a wet lab.
Sure.
I would spontaneously say, don't look at me, I'm drunk. Well, they don't even have to go through the test at that point. Spontaneous confession. Anyway, here we go.
Focus on my finger, please.
I am. You're just like trying to intimidate me.
I don't know how I'm trying to do that. This is the test.
As you know, as an indigenous person, and there's a bunch of going around, I'm sorry, but it's just for me to be on my toes.
I get you.
Can you remember that I told you that? I have social non-binary.
Yeah, I'll try my hardest. I'll refer to you as Kai, right?
Yes.
Perfect. I need to know if you have any injuries or anything that would prevent you from doing a standard walk or turn tonight.
Mental health.
Any physical injuries?
Mental, yeah.
Mental, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Mental PTSD, depression, anxiety.
I get you.
What else you want?
Now with your right foot, place it in front of your left in a heel-to-toe touching manner with your arms by your side, just like this, ma'am.
Can you not call me ma'am, please?
She's upset because he's calling her ma'am. He's just wanting to get the test over with. Can you please?
I'm trying my hardest.
Okay, well,
Okay.
it means a lot to me.
I'm trying my
I
hardest.
don't feel like a man, so
Okay.
it's kind of triggering.
Right foot in front of your left. Nope, go back.
I'm sorry, but the whole man thing, just like,
I apologize.
She's crying.
Let's see if we can move forward from it. You have 0 questions?
no, but I just want to tell you that I suffer from really bad anxiety, especially with generational trauma and PTSD around white people and
Around white people. She's white. She's not an I can't even say it, indigenous person. I'm looking at I'm sorry, I called her a her, didn't I? I'm looking at Kai. Kai is white.
thoughts. Like, it's just
I'm going to speak with you right over here, okay?
no.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and place your hands behind your back.
Don't, dude.
Don't make it hard.
Please.
Don't make it hard.
No,
Don't. You're going to get a resistance.
Dude,
You're going to get a resistance. right?
don't.
Don't resist.
Don't.
Listen to me. Don't resist.
Don't. You're being
Come
a
here.
white man and
Come here.
don't.
You're being a white man. Stop being Chris. Stop being a white man.
This is just comical.
It's funny and it's real. That's what's so scary. Okay, one more time.
Don't.
Don't resist.
Don't.
Listen to me. Don't resist.
Don't. You're being
Come
a
here.
white man and
Come here.
don't. I followed all of your like, as an indigenous person, like, you guys. You guys are scaring me.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yes, there is. It's called.
Y'all, this is our society. This is our future.
We're doomed.
We are doomed. I would rather be on the island with the misfit toys. Because that's some misfit rhyme word, S word that I don't want to be around. And I would say bless her heart.
That would offend her. That would trigger her.
Yes, it would.
Oh, I did it too.
Yes. See, I don't even know how to play in this world at all. What would I say? Bless them's heart. I don't know. Bless they heart. I don't. How would you do it?
I'm just taking
Bless
my ball and
its-
going home.
Yeah,
I'm
bless
not
its
playing.
heart. I don't. All right. 615-737-9986. Frank, thanks for calling.
Yes, I hope you can hear me okay.
I can.
I was just wondering if the guy that had the gun that shot that poor 18-year-old girl, if he had his gun legally. And the reason that's so important is I've got lots of liberal friends. All they talk about is gun control. But if that gun was stolen or if he was a felon and shouldn't have had the gun, then that's a big deal. It wouldn't have done a bit of good if he had the gun stolen or if he wasn't supposed to have it.
Right. I don't know at this point how he got that gun because in the stories that we are seeing, he has the competency of a kindergartner. So I'm not
Right.
really sure how he got it. And it has
Okay,
not been
I think
reported yet.
I think it's important that we find out because I've been
Agreed.
listening and I haven't heard anybody say
It's
that.
because we don't know yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Let's go to Scott, who's on the road. Hey, Scott, welcome to WTN.
Hello, Miss Pamela, or I'm sorry, I'm identifying just Pamela.
How dare you?
Welcome to Tennessee, y'all.
Stop being a white
I've got-
man.
I know, I am.
Well,
a white
I'm
man.
assuming
Darn
you
it.
are. I don't really know.
Yes,
You're on the
I
phone.
am.
All right. Well, what's up, Scott?
Well, I'm new to the state,
Mhm.
and I'm leaving all of my other politics back home where it belongs, and happy to be here. But about a year ago, I was involved with a DUI head-on collision. I had to be life flighted up to Nashville, and I'm alive, which is great. But the person that was DUI, this is her 7th
Oh my God.
DUI.
Wow.
DUI number 7. And now, there, but for the grace of God, this would have been a manslaughter thing.
Yeah.
But as this is moving its way through the court system slowly, but it is working its way through, this person is probably going to walk after 2 years in jail. Now, me, today, I can hardly walk because of what she did to my back and because of the rain that's come through.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to be out on the street. She already had a revoked license.
And still driving.
7 DUIs.
Yeah. Wow.
And so let's get beyond all of what happens. What do we do now?
Yeah, that is the question. And Scott, I hate to do this to you. I'm going to have to put you on hold because we are up against a hard clock here. So I'm going to have to let you go. Scott, who do we call? You got to call your legislature. You got to find out who is the DA in your particular case and why this woman is still allowed to be on the streets. And if you need to do something about that DA, the state legislature can help you. That is the short answer I have. You can contact me on socials, and I can give you more details on what you can do. We need to take a break here. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones. Actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.